In this story, the word wise in Greek is the word fronimos. Fronimos. And that means practical wisdom, shrewdness, savvy, being sensible or prudent. Matthew uses phronenos 7 times in his gospel. But I bet in a congregation like this, you're very familiar with the other word in the New Testament that shows up for wisdom, and that is sophia. Sophia means not practical wisdom, savvy, shrewdness, all those things, but sophia means divine wisdom, knowledge of sacred matters, the insight into mystery. Matthew does use the word sophia, so I know he knew it. Matthew uses sophia once in his book, where Jesus uses it to speak of himself. And this is the quote from Matthew 11. "The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, 'Look, a glutton and drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.' Yet wisdom," he's pointing at himself, we believe, at that moment, "yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds." The wise, quote-unquote, bridesmaids are fronimos. They are full of practical wisdom. They brought flasks of oil to refill their lamps. They are never called Sophia. There's no mention of them being attuned to divine insight or divine or sacred mystery. And they contended with the foolish bridesmaids, that's the contrast, making this sound more like a proverb than a typical parable. And foolish in Greek is the word moros, a word that can be translated into English as flat, dull, insipid, or nonsensical. And so you see what the witticism in the story is. It's the contrast between those who are full of practical wisdom, shrewdness, and savvy, and those who are dullards. Maybe they're the kind of people who have their head in the clouds. We call them dreamers. They possess little or no common sense. Now, in our world, and probably in the world that Jesus inhabited too, the people we praise are those who are shrewd. We praise those who are full of common sense. And we sometimes look at those who have their heads in the clouds and we go, oh, what good are they ever going to be in the world? We teach our children to be prudent and practical, sensible, be prepared, we tell them. But maybe this is a comedy because Jesus had a different idea. Certainly, the Apostle Paul did. 3 decades before the Gospel of Matthew was written, the Apostle Paul penned these words to his friends in Corinth. "Do not deceive yourselves. If you think you are wise in this age, you should become fools so that you might become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. For it is written, 'He catches the wise in their craftiness.' And again, 'The Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, and they are futile.'" Now, Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, does not use the word phronimos. He used the word sophia. But he refers to Sophia, he uses it in a very unusual way. He calls it the Sophia of this world. In effect, he's saying it's the kind of wisdom that this world values. And I think that what he means is it's the kind that the world praises, kind of a practical wisdom, that idea of being sensible or shrewd or savvy. Earlier in his letter to the Corinthians, Paul explicitly calls Jesus the Sophia of God, in the same way Jesus called himself that in the Gospel of Matthew. And Paul explicitly set up a contrast between worldly wisdom, which was passing away, which was deceptive, which was foolish, and divine wisdom, which is an insight into God and the purposes that God has had since the beginning of time. So in this letter and all his other letters, Paul makes this contrast over and over and over again. There are two kinds of wisdom, Paul insists. One that is conventional, one that is common sense, one that the world knows, and that one is really foolishness. It's inverted. And the other, divine wisdom, is the source of life and salvation.